Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Words of Heart podcast. I am your host, Dion Sanchez, and joining me in this particular episode is D. Neil Elliott. He is an author, and I am happy to have him on this episode. Thank you for joining me, Neil.
Oh, Dion, it's my pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So, Neil, aside from being an awesome author, could you share with my audience a bit about yourself, what your book is called, just to get the ball rolling in this episode?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with the book. The book is called A Higher Road, Cleanse Your Consciousness to Transcend the Ego and Ascend Spiritually, a 7-step process to inner peace, joy, love, abundance, and prosperity. And so I was born in 1960. Professional engineer with an MBA, and lived in Canada my entire life, although I've traveled the world. And from 2002 to 2015, I slowly drove myself into this really deep and dark, despondent depression. And in 2015, I realized I was there. Now, we're all great actors in our environment, right? We wear this facade and we can project whatever we want to family, friends, and clients. So no one knew I was in that space, and except for myself. And so what I did is I picked up some spiritual books and I picked up some scientific books, and I tried to go through a process to liberate me from these thoughts that had me locked in this depression. And I spent a couple of years on that. And in November 2017, our house had been on the market for about 5 years, and it finally sold. My wife got on a plane to fly to Toronto, Ontario, Canada to visit family and friends. And we were in this little 1-bedroom rental apartment in the city. I sat down at the little kitchen table, planned out my suicide, and crafted my suicide note. And I was planning my suicide out for about 3 months. To ensure that my wife would be okay financially and I could say goodbye to my family, friends, without them knowing what I was going to do. And about a week prior to that, some information fortuitously arrived to me, and it promised to liberate me from my thinking if I followed it. So I grew up agnostic, but I had this little sliver of doubt, so to speak, that if I committed suicide, I'd end up in a really bad place and I wouldn't be able to recover from that. So I was looking for anything to kind of hang on. So I thought I'll give this material a chance. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, then I can always pull the trigger. So I started this studying this material and following it and learning some new knowledge. And a year later, so 2018, so I'm 58, a year later, 2018, November 2018, I woke up and my depression was totally gone. And I was just full of this inner love and peace and joy. And I felt totally prosperous and abundant, even though nothing had changed in my environment. And so then a month after that, so December 2018, end of December, I went into these 2 meditations 2 days apart. And as it went into this meditation, my vibrational levels of consciousness swiftly rose, and then all of a sudden, the spiritual energy it flowed in through my head, and it filled my body, and then it totally enveloped me in unconditional love. And it's an unconditional love that we don't have the human language to describe. I felt totally supported. I felt totally bathed in unconditional love. I didn't care what anybody had done to me in the past. I felt non-judged for anything that I had done throughout my life. And I didn't care what pains and aches and illnesses my body had. I just wanted to stay there forever. I came out of that meditation, and 2 days later I had the exact same meditation. And at that point, I knew that the new knowledge I gained and the process I followed is our truth. And I wanted to share it with everybody. And I thought, I'll get on the rooftops and share this. This is so important for everybody to know. And I thought, well, I'll be looked at like an idiot if I do that. So I won't do that. And it took me a couple of years to figure out the best way to do is to write a book. So I wrote a book, and in my book, I share the exact process that I went through, and in the hopes that it will help other people. whoever that helps. And so, I believe that as more and more of us make this kind of shift to come back to our truth and come back to this state of unconditional love, where I just want to express unconditional love to everybody I meet, regardless of what they are doing. And I believe that as more and more people do this, we will eventually bring this world into a new era of love and peace. And so that's why I wrote the book.
Absolutely.
And that was... No, go ahead.
Absolutely. No problem. I'm sorry to interrupt. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more as far as the era of love. Just to tap into what you were discussing as far as how our subconscious and depression and our whole mental health is intertwined in regards to that overwhelming surge of love that entered their subconscious. I can understand that fairly well. Just to give you some backstory on me, for a good majority of my birth to up until me going into high school, really, I struggled pretty, I wouldn't say severely, but it soon got to that point. For the first years of my life, I couldn't hear her talk, so I had no control over that. Obviously, I'm having this discussion with you, so that didn't really stick. So, as a result of all those deficiencies that occurred at my birth, I was pretty different from most individuals who enter this world. And as a result, it was really difficult for some reason for me to get engagement from others or any socialization whatsoever. So, as a kid, you want that socialization, you want that friendship, but I didn't have that, and I lacked that for really up until I got into high school. So my whole adolescence, it was just me struggling and wondering why nobody would accept me, why does nobody want to be my friend. It was just really, it got really saddening and heartening. And as a little kid, I mean, you get picked on for a variety of things, for fries, French fries, although I still don't understand how French fries translates into an insult, but it still hurt either way. And it wasn't so much them making fun of me for those mundane things that, I mean, it hurt me either way, but it's really silly to be made fun of. It was just the fact that they were rejecting me for being me, and there's nothing I can do about that. So, that, again, I would cry every single night. Just, why does anybody want to be my friend? I'm a Christian, so I will get into the subconscious and spirituality of which you were experiencing from my perspective. Fast forward to middle school, I was considering suicide. I had no fulfillment of purpose. I just felt like I had if nobody wants to be my friend, God, why am I here? Why was my purpose for being here? And from some childhood examples, like me raising my hand in class to answer a question, I got it wrong, everybody would laugh. If someone else gets it wrong, nobody would laugh. So I wanted that acceptance. I also had to prove my intelligence. There was no medical diagnosis for what it was that I had. They called it 2 years delayed. It was the 90s, so to this day, I'm sure it is still an occurrence, but from my recollection, there's no term or name to describe it. But it was just saddening because I just wanted to be accepted. And for me, as far as my suicide mentality, I didn't discuss it with anyone. I think my projection or facade of what you described, I was a really shy and quiet kid, so I guess that was what I was projecting into the world. But at the same time, I wanted to be social, but nobody gave me a chance. So for me, for me, it would have been a butter knife. I was alone one day, I don't really remember why, and I held a butter knife for an extremely insane amount of time, and I just contemplated, like, what if I gave myself a cut, and another cut, and cutting would have been my way of ending my life in that scenario. But I didn't. Fast forward to your example, obviously. For me, as far as when things turned around, was a youth camp. I want to say it was like 2011, 2010. I was just about to go into high school. I saw no reason for being here, really, still, and it seemed like nothing was going to change. Similar to you. Like, your circumstances are what they are. You can't really control it. So the older kids who sort of acknowledged me a little bit, like, oh, you should go, you should go. I was adamant about not going because the aftermath of the experiences was what I had a problem with. I would go, be interacting with fellow believers. Yay, they have to acknowledge me. They don't have a cell phone. They don't have a computer. They have no choice but to interact with me and have a close relationship with God. You have to connect with each other. That's usually the fundamental purpose of these youth camps. But then I would come home and I would be invisible girl again. It's not like we just spent 2 weeks with each other on a beach reading a Bible together. So, I was going to go into high school, another jungle, another set of challenges, figuring out who you are. And I was fairly aware that I had no reason for being here still. But I went. And the final night, the topic was the Holy Spirit. And from what you just described, that's basically how I was experiencing it. Just an oversurge of love and emotion, purpose and fulfillment. That's literally how my subconscious interpreted it and my emotions interpret it. I fell on my knees and cried. Like, everything in that moment was just, I was at peace. Internally, mentally, physically, I felt like I finally had a reason for being here. People were hugging me and crying and praying. Like we would care if you disappeared. So I feel like that moment really changed the trajectory of my life because I was just so unbelievably miserable and just alone, and my family didn't have any idea. I could have just died at any given moment, and I had the means, I'm sure, to do it, but luckily I was able to experience that experience when I did and have this conversation before you. So I understand fully well how the subconscious kind of works as far as depression and struggling, and luckily I gave into what God was intertwining into my subconscious, and here I am.
Well, and I mean, that sounds like a pretty tough childhood for darn sure. So
Yes.
that's interesting. So 2011, so how's life been with you since then?
How's life been with me since then? Well, fast forward from that experience, I went into high school with a clear sense of self and purpose. I continued to work hard in my studies because, as I mentioned, as a result of my deficiencies, it took me a little longer to learn things and adapt to things. So I continue working hard, and I find this pivotal to mention because it's part of my story. When I was born, fast forward to like getting ready to graduate high school in that time frame, I wasn't told because I was a baby, but my parents told, not parents, the doctors told my parents that, hey, because of all these deficiencies and she's ADHD, you might as well dope her up with medication. Now, I'm pretty sure there's many opinions in regards to medication and how you want to go about that. Is completely your prerogative for my listeners, but for my parents and a little baby, they didn't want to dope me up with medication. Though it may be challenging to raise me, which I'm sure it was. But aside from that, they also mentioned to my parents that I was retarded. Oh, let me clarify. Trainably retarded, which is no better than what they just described. So I was not only categorized as different from the second I entered this world, I was categorized as dumb, which is a lot to consume and take as a parent, I'm sure. So my moment graduating high school was a monumentous moment. Obviously, it's a monumentous moment for anyone because you're done with school, but it was a monumentous moment for so many reasons because not only did I graduate from high school, I And if those doctors are still around, I would love to laugh in their face, but it was the 90s, so who knows if they're around. But not only did I prove my intelligence, I graduated high school with a 3.0 GPA, which is above average. Lovely time. And 2 scholarships as well. So as far as my mindset from that experience, it was going extremely well. As far as the subconscious in regards to right now, to give a more recent example, which I'm sure many of my listeners can relate to, it was 2019, which was November 2019 to be more specific. This was around the pandemic year, which unfortunately we're still in. Everything in my life up to that point in time, subconsciously, mentally, physically, was still going well. I had friends, I had socialization, I was going out, having fun. Everything was going well. I was in college, I was studying digital media, actually not digital media, graphic design, which is intimidating. I finally was able to understand it. And everything was going pretty good. But my body, my mind, everything came crashing down before me. And I'll be able to explain why that was in a few minutes. But everything was crashing before me because I was sick. I was basically a skeleton. It was just, and you mentioned depression, which we can connect to as far as not feeling like we have a place in this world. In this instance, I was just suffering so unbelievably bad because I didn't know the answers. The answers weren't reaching my subconscious. I didn't know where they were or if I was going to be around to hear it. So, as far as that stage of my life, it was really depressing. I had just turned 24. It was the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving. All of these things you're supposed to be happy for, and I couldn't. I couldn't be happy at all. I wasn't smiling. I didn't even want to leave my room. It was just unbelievably depressing. I felt like this was going to be my last day of life. Because I was going to turn into ash at any given second. So, fast forward to January 2020, in regards to the connection to my audience, the pandemic is when that unfortunately started to get worse. And I was diagnosed with diabetes at that point.
Oh, geez.
So, to undergo a new health change during this virus, which can kill you, is not fun at all for any listeners or anyone who experienced that. But for me, as far as mentally, it was a lot to take in. My family did not take kindly to this news. I was an adult at this point. My life was fairly at ease, and they thought it was unfair for me to have to overcome other health challenges as a result. But I saw it as a blessing. I was on the precipice of death, but hey, my diagnosis gave me a chance to live my life. So I took it as a blessing in disguise, but it was still a lot to adapt to, and I took off from school. I ended up passing school while I was sick also, which is, to this day, I still have no idea how that was earthly possible because I was not in school for a good deal of time. But, it was a lot to adapt to, and to do that during this pandemic wasn't any easier. So as a result, I isolated myself, and I didn't contact anyone. I didn't discuss it really. It wasn't until March that I felt like I was ready to be me again and go out and be social. And then that second week of March, everything got shut down. And at that point, it's like, I can't get a break. Several months ago, I could have died. I'm alive. I'm back to being me again, and then everything gets shut down. So, how does one handle not socializing, wanting to socialize because they're ready and mentally ready, and then I have no choice but to be isolated. So that was difficult, but luckily through the internet, I was able to find Zoom and find small groups from my church and get that socialization and not resort to old habits of suicide and mental health and all that stuff. I was able to maintain some stability and have that support while I was still adapting to this new health challenge. And that was a long-winded story.
No, I mean, there's a lot of detail there, but it's a testament to your resiliency to keep going.
Neil, are you still there? I can't.
I am.
Are you still there?
Yeah, totally.
Why is everything is all glitchy right now? Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I just undid my microphone and I can't hear you now, so I have to. Let me plug it back in. Okay. Okay. How about now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes,
okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Everything was glitching and turning into the Matrix, but yes, that long-winded story. If it wasn't for all the experiences and circumstances I've overcome and experienced, then it wouldn't have led to this awesome podcast. So
yeah, no, that's great. And as I was saying when you couldn't hear me, is it's a testament to your resiliency. So congratulations on that. And that's good. That's good. And now you have a podcast as well.
You.
So yeah. So
Yes,
just to give everybody just a little short thing. So my book is bridges this gap between spirituality and science, and I describe things that we know in science today that will enable you to make this bridge between spirituality and science, and lay a foundation for you to be open and curious to accept these new truths that I share with people. And so my recommended way to read A Higher Road is read it cover to cover, understand the process in its entirety, and then make a decision for yourself. If it resonates with you, you go back and start with some of the science material, or directly with step one, whichever makes sense to you. And if it doesn't resonate with you, then because we can never accurately judge the inner reality of another person, someone who's really kind and affable might be an entire misery inside. We just don't know. So I ask you either put that book on the shelf for 5, 10, 15 years and reread it, or pass it on to somebody else and let them discover for themselves whether or not this process and this new knowledge that transformed my life can make a difference to them. So all of the peace, the love, the joy, the security that you are seeking, it's all inside of you. You just need to understand, you need to gain some new knowledge and understand this process that gets into the subconscious mind and breaks up these patterns of thinking and feeling that imprison you in your thoughts, and make this connection back to source, whether you call it God or Yahweh, the Allah, the Tao, whatever you want to call it. Make this connection back to source. And when you make this connection back to source and the spiritual energy flows into your head, it will support you in this process of inner cleansing and rebuilding of your consciousness for you to come back into alignment with who you really are. And who you really are is unconditional love and peace and joy and love and humor. And when you come back into this state, then you just want to be this expression of unconditional love to everybody. And it doesn't matter what's going on in the world around you or what other people's opinions are or what they say. You will be wanting to help them wake up through being just this expression of unconditional love. And if people are open and willing and curious about how you got to this state, you share. But if they are not, then you just hold your peace, because it's not your place to push your beliefs onto other people. So they will come to it when they're ready to come to it. And it's a one-way ticket. Everybody will come here in one lifetime or another. So, but if you're unhappy with any aspect of your life right now, then my book, A Higher Road, may be just your ticket to transform your life and bring it back to this inner state of love, peace, and joy. And that's that's my goal, is to help people do that.
I absolutely love that, and that's also a fundamental goal for my platform as well, and why I started this podcast, to help others, to be that form of support and comfort and acceptance, and just be there for whoever needs it or is struggling, similar to my own circumstances, and just want to be about love, peace. After all, it's called Words of Heart for a reason. So I truly admire your goal in your book and what it represents, and I truly believe, subconsciously and interdimensionally, and however the world wants to project it, I truly believe in your mission and that it will reach people as well as my audience.
Oh, well, thank you. And I hope it does. And, just give it a chance, read the book cover to cover. You don't have to agree with it, or you can. It's that's not what it's about. It's about learning some new knowledge, understanding a process, and then deciding if it's going to work for you. But I can tell you can totally transform your life if you're willing to follow the 7 steps that I offer people and the new knowledge that I share.
Awesome. Can you share one of those steps with my audience in your book?
Yeah, well, I can share, this is at a very high level. I can share the steps. The first thing is to really get a new understanding of what consciousness really is. And I do that through a process of discussing what consciousness is, and then explaining consciousness in a way that people can understand. So I do this in a way which everybody will understand the concepts. Everybody will understand. They'll be able to relate to them, and of how we program our subconscious mind from babyhood to adulthood. And we think we're becoming versed in the ways of the world, but really what we're doing is we're binding our soul off, and we're shutting it off from its connection to source, from connection to light. And what you need to understand is that everything that you think is right or wrong, good or bad, true or false, is really fundamentally just a belief. It's a belief that you have adopted. And when you bring back and these beliefs that you've adopted that become these patterns of thinking and feeling in your unconscious and subconscious mind, they're like concrete. They're very hard to break up and dissolve. So you need this process to get in there, break them up, dissolve them, and then rebuild your consciousness to be in alignment with where we come from and to where we return after death. And when you bring your consciousness back into this alignment with the divine, if you will, then that will give the divine the ability to enter into you and help you with this process of inner cleansing and rebuilding of your consciousness. So the first step is really stretching your consciousness to understand what consciousness really is, to get a first glimpse of that. And then the second step, I unveil these truths. And these truths, if you follow these 7 steps, you'll understand an even deeper level of what consciousness really is. So it's a process that it's easy to understand. It's simple, but it does take some work. So there's no instant gratification. There's no fast food order here and having it delivered in an hour.
No, I think that's the circumstances of anything in life. There is no quick Uber way of getting a quick fix. It takes progress and work and the willingness to want to do that.
Yeah, you got to be open and willing and come to this information like a little child, full of curiosity and wonder without any preconceived notions or judgments. And if you can do that, then you've opened yourself up to learn some new knowledge, and then follow this process. And I tell you, you can totally transform your life no matter where you are, whether you're living on the street or you're living in a mansion. you can totally transform your life and come back to the way that we're meant to be. We're supposed to be, cared for and loved and in feeling of complete security and peace. And this is all inside of you. You just need to unlock it, and you need this process to go through, and you do this and you follow it, and your life will totally change.
Absolutely. Speaking of life, I'm going to get to the icebreaker segment, which is my favorite part and my subconscious's favorite part because my guest doesn't expect it. So we'll start with the icebreaker question, which, as I mentioned to you before, it doesn't require any logic of any sort. So the question, which may be pretty easy for you because you're an author, which is, if you had to come up with a title for where your life is at this precise moment in time, what would it be? And if you can even explain a little bit as to why, that would be even better.
A title. Okay, well, titles usually take a little longer to craft, but I would think that it's a soul. I'm a soul on a journey to come back to our truth. So a soul on our journey to come back to our truth. And what this really means is to come back into alignment with where we come from and be this embodiment and expression of unconditional love, to allow the divine to come in through you and express itself through you, which is unconditional love to everyone and everything in your environment.
Wow. That is a wonderful title on the spot. Makes my title seems kind of silly, but I'm going to share it either way. So my title, which should come to no surprise for my listeners, and it is basically, the title is called A Warrior for Change. I've had to overcome a lot in my life, not being able to hear or talk, having diabetes in a pandemic, a whole mishmash pit of challenges and obstacles and just a bunch of stuff that any adult my age wouldn't have experienced. But as a result of that, it's strengthened me to who I am. It's symbiotic to everything I've gone through, and is also why this podcast flourished 2 years ago as of this month. So being a warrior for change is basically the best title or representation of where my life is and is currently going at this point in time.
Well, and I think that's a great title. That's a fantastic title.
Thank you.
So it represents who you are and what you're doing.
Yes, thank you. So on to the icebreaker game, which is a bunch of laughs and giggles for me. So as I mentioned, it doesn't require any logic. So the game is called Song Association. You don't have to be an avid singer. You can be a shower singer, a karaoke singer, a shower singer, a yodeler. Although, to this day, I don't understand how you could yodel any of these words, but many guests have tried to yodel these words as well. Basically how it works is I give you a word, you can sing it, rap it, yodel it. It can either be in the song title or in the lyrics. Many people have tried to change this game. They've replaced words, they have made up songs, they use the title or name of the artist. That's not how it works. You have a certain amount of time, so you don't have the luxury of time, to either sing it, rap it, yodel it, either in the song title or in the lyrics. You actually have to try to sing it. That's the fun of the game. It loosens you up. It's lots of fun. And it's amazing how, and we've been talking about subconscious and the brain and how we're wired. And it's amazing how quickly your subconscious turns against you when you have to think of this game. So, if you are ready, Neil, I can give you the first word.
Okay, I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be. And I'm not a singer.
That's the fun of this. So the first, oh, that kind of was loud. The first word is heart.
Heart? H-E-R, H-E-R-E, yeah, okay, heart. And you just want a one-line song?
Yes.
Time's up.
I guess I should have told you how much time you had. It was.
Oh yeah, how much time do I have? Oh, okay, I did not know that. Okay.
Well, I can give you one different word and start the timer again.
Okay, do that.
Okay. I never had to do this before.
Always the first time.
Okay. Okay, I just thought of it. So the first word, which is in connection in this conversation, is science.
Ah. Science thinks it knows where we come from, although it is really just theories and postulation.
Wow, I was not thinking that when it crossed my inner mind. I was thinking of I don't even know the name of the artist, honestly. I think it's probably in like an old 80s movies or something. She blinded me with science. Something.
Oh, I don't think I know that one.
Good.
I might know that one, but I don't know that one.
That was pretty good. So the next word for your subconscious to have to come up with, the next word is words.
Is words? W-O-R-D-S?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
We use words to communicate, but they have different meanings for all. Overrun by the dinger.
That's a song. Okay. I mean, I'll give you a point for that. You really started before the timer went off. If it helps, not everybody people understand the game, but not everybody makes it to the timer. So if it helps, so the lines are just to be funny, but I'm not going to do that. The last word for you, your subconscious, the interwaves of technology is shine.
Oh. Shine on, show your light at the dawn.
You're doing pretty good on some of these words. Well, Neil, thank you for taking part in the favorite part of this segment, which is the icebreaker game. You did pretty good, particularly with the science word, which I just thought of just because you messed up on the first one. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. And I haven't told everybody, but yes, I can. I haven't told everybody, but you can learn more about my book at ahigherroad.com. And it's available globally on Amazon or through your local bookstores in print or ebook. Your favorite ebook form, Kindle, Apple, Nook, or Kobo.
Awesome. And I was just going to get to that part, but you already got to it. Aside from the book links of which you just shared, do you have any other social media where people can find you? Is your book going to be on the moon? Give us the inside scoop as far as how my audience can get in touch with you.
So if you go to ahigherroad.com, all of my social media links are on there. And again, the book's available globally. You can get it through Amazon or through your local bookstore. And yeah, you can learn more about it at ahigherroad.com. And you can also, you can contact me via that website as well.
Neil. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Dion. It's been a pleasure. It's been an interesting
Neil,
show.
Yes, it has. Don't disappear quite yet. Thank you so much for joining me. It was such an amazing conversation, and I'm just unbelievably touched by your mission, and just truly thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Don't go anywhere. To my audience, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Words of Heart podcast. If you enjoyed it, if you laughed, if it reached the inner workings of your mind, either way, here are the ways to find this particular episode. We are on Facebook at the Words of Heart podcast. We're also on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, and Google. If you want to exclusively listen to this episode before it airs, you can find it on Patreon as well. Again, thank you so much, Neil, for joining me. And to all my audience, stay healthy, stay safe. If you are listening to it from the moon, again, I come in peace. I still want intergalactic broadcasts to happen. But until then, much love, much peace from all of us here at the Words of Heart podcast. And until next time, bye.